I think I'm going to call this video why you want to take your phone with you when you poop in the woods. And it all started last summer. I did a long section hike on the Pacific Crest Trail, several hundred miles. And I was in Oregon, and my usual routine was to get up around 5:30, hit the trail, and I would try to do what's called 10 by 10, which means getting in 10 miles of hiking by 10 a.m. And invariably, right around 9:30, I'd have to go number 2. It was just kind of like clockwork. So there I was, and I needed to go, but there was no place to go. The trail was, the hillside, it was steep. There was no place to get off the trail. And I just kept going and going. And finally, I came to a flat area where I could go. So I ditched my pack and I went into the woods, and the woods were really dense. It was flat, but it was dense. So I went in maybe, I don't know, 10 or 15 yards, didn't find a place, kept going, found a place that almost looked like it would work, but realized it wouldn't. So I kept going, and I did this 3 or 4 times. So I was probably, at this point, 50, 75 yards in the woods, and I finally found a place that was good enough. So I dug a cat hole, did my thing, covered it up, and then I realized I have to get back to my pack, and I didn't know which direction it was in. I had been in such a rush to get to where I was to poop that I really hadn't been like getting a bearing on landmarks. So a couple things, the terrain was perfectly flat, so I couldn't use the gradient as a way to remember which direction I'd come from, like if uphill was to the right or to the left coming in. And the forest was so thick that I couldn't see the sun, so I couldn't use that as a marker either. So I realized, oh man, I got myself in a situation here. The thing that I did that was right is I stopped. I didn't go any deeper in, and I assessed my situation, because I know from past experience that if you rush, you just compound the problem. What you want to do is try to at least stop and assess and figure out where to go from there. And then I realized that I had my phone with me, and I was using Gaia GPS to track, to basically create digital breadcrumbs of where I was going. And I had it with me, fortunately. So I pulled out my phone, and sure enough, it showed me the track I'd taken to get into the forest from my pack. And I was able to backtrack following that digital trail on my phone. But I'll tell you what, if I hadn't done that, if I hadn't had Gaia GPS running, I might not be here. There have been people who have died because they went into the woods to do their thing, and then they forgot how to get back, or they got lost and they couldn't get back to their pack. So a couple lessons there. If you got a phone and you're tracking yourself, take your phone with you by all means. Second, really assess where you're going. Look backwards when you're going into the forest, so you've got an idea of where you've been, where you're going, so that you can remember how to get back to where you started. So I hope that's a good lesson. Looking back, it's a funny story now, but man, could have had a whole different outcome. So there you go. Take your phone with you when you go poop in the woods.